Get some more of my career in real quick. One maybe game today. Maybe a little more. Depending on if I can find some good philosophy. Holy shit, my layup still ain't up. Moving screen. Damn. Damn. Throws it down. Damn. That's on me. Pushed out of bounds.
No problem.
Barely. Pushed him back out of bounds. Damn. Drummond. Damn, I can't believe that. Grabbed him. Hold on, y'all. Had him stuck behind me. On some bullshit. Hold on. Hold on, wait. Oh, you can do that now too? That's cool. He's stuck. He's stuck. God, I can't make a layup for shit. Back-to-back threes. That's crazy.
In the problem of Atlantis, I think there are a number of points that have not been generally considered. We think of Atlantis as an island, probably somewhere in the Atlantic, and probably about in the location of the present Azores Islands. But actually, Atlantis was a diffusion. If you buy a map now of the world as it is today, we can say that that is the modern distribution. But to have a map of Atlantis as it was in the time of its glory, you would have to have a map of the entire planet, because it was a distribution. Continents rose and fell, islands came up and went down, great land shifts occurred, and the Atlantic distribution of land was far more important and far more far-reaching than the mere problem of an island somewhere in the ocean. So we have to think of Atlantis in relationship to a complete pattern of the planet. As Plato clearly points out, the island of Poseidonis, which we now think of as Atlantis, was the last fragment of a great empire. It is the last surviving part, and is supposed to have disappeared under the ocean about 12,000 years before the Trojan War, which would make it about 15,000 years ago. Now, in connection with the problem of Atlantis, I think the next thing we have to study is the name. Plato refers to the mysterious empire as Atlantis. He probably received this name, or secured it, from Solon, who in turn had received it from the priests of the Egyptian temple at Sais. Now, the word Atlantis, or its root, is not Egyptian, and it is not Greek. No one seems to be able to trace the origin of the name. It appears on two very important phases of ancient mythology, Atlantis and Atlas. And the root is ATL, Atal. Now, if we look to find a language in which that word or that root is permissible or was used, we find you'd have to come to the Western Hemisphere, because Atal was one of the month names of the Mayas. It also has more than just a name significance. Its glyph, or its symbol, is a deluge. This seems then to give us the real basis of our word, that we are dealing with a term that represents a world experience, that various countries were involved in it, that the circumstances were known around the entire planet, and that the name that has survived to us today is probably based upon the records on the Western Hemisphere. Now, if we take the general term to represent this mysterious region, we then can find from the Codex Troano, which is in the museum in Madrid, one of the surviving documents of the Mayas, that this particular deluge is marked in the glyphs of the people. The story is told in pictures, but among these pictures there is one in which the sky dragon, or the sky serpent, is pouring water from its mouth, and below this the god of death is dancing on the earth. Now, this was a long time ago, long before the coming of the Spaniards, but the records even go much further than that. According to the Chinese, the previous existence before our present coming to this earth was destroyed. The previous world was destroyed by water, a tremendous deluge. And in the I Ching, the 8 trigrams, basic trigrams, correspond to Noah and his wife, their 3 sons and their 3 wives, were the 8 who were saved. And this is exactly what the Chinese tell us. So the story goes around here and there and everywhere. It's a very interesting story, but what does it really mean? Is it merely an archaeological curiosity, or does it have some dynamic value for us today? I would like to think of Atlantis much as Lord Bacon did in his book, The New Atlantis, in which he says in very simple terms, the New Atlantis, which is America. Bacon was quite convinced that on the Western Hemisphere, a great empire would arise, an empire that would surpass the glory of the Atlantean story, and that this new world would not be destroyed. It would not turn against the gods. It would not misuse the energies of nature, and as a result would become a new world, a restoration of the Golden Age. Now, when we study this Atlantean problem a little more carefully, we realize there have been a number of speculations on this. Vice President Dawes made quite an extensive search for the Atlantean world. A number of good archaeologists and ethnologists have devoted time to it. And the general attitude is no longer to discard it as a fable, but to try to find out what its actual meaning could be. Now let us suppose that Solon was correct, and that Solon, being an old man, was unable to do what he had intended to do, and that was to write out an account of the lost Atlantis as he found it, or it was given to him, in the caves under the Temple of Sais in Egypt. Here on columns formed of orichalcum, a metal that cannot perish, was recorded the story of a lost world. These 2 tablets are sometimes referred to as the Tables of Enoch, and we find a great deal of mystical lore surrounding this story. In any event, Solon, being very old and unable to carry on the work, passed the legend on to one of his descendants who was a student of Plato's. And this student, in turn, told Plato, who took the story, to use it as a great symbolical account of the descent of man. Now, Plato does not deny that the story is literally true, but he does point out so many very subtle and unusual details that we are forced to realize that he embellished it to represent the entire story of the planet Earth and its development. According to Plato, at a remote time, the gods of high Olympus distributed the world to their various sub-deities, and to Poseidon was given the lands of the sea, the great oceans, the islands, the archipelagos. And Poseidon created his kingdom in the oceans, and he created a wonderful city called the City of the Golden Gate. And in this city there was the temple to him, and in this temple were the tablets containing the laws of life, the laws that must be obeyed if man is to survive and to enjoy the favors of the gods. And the Atlantic Empire consisted of 7 islands. These 7 islands also occur in the Mexican story. These islands came together to form a league, and this league in turn created a kind of empire. And in the course of ages, the princes of the islands of the Atlantides became very proud. They decided that they would conquer the world. So in order to achieve this great end, they decided to send expeditions of conquest over all the other parts of the then Atlantean distribution. Now this distribution at that time consisted, much as it does today, of countries of various degrees of development. It was not an uninhabited world. The Atlanteans were not the only people. But these other people were comparatively primitive. They were like the natives of Africa or the natives of some Polynesian area, or perhaps the natives of some distant islands of the South Pacific. They were primitive people, but they existed. And the Atlantean merchants went to them, traded with them, and bartered with them. Plato states definitely that Atlantis had a great mercantile, that it traveled to all parts of the world, that it even visited Europe and as far south as South America. But gradually this empire grew more and more proud. Gradually fame, wealth, and power became the great objectives for life. And there was another dimension. These peoples possessed extrasensory perceptions that had not yet been closed by the process of embodiment. They were like the extrasensory perceptions of small children, in whom faculties are partly active, which are now dormant in our racial groups. So in any way, these magicians, these sorcerers, these powerful ones who possessed Vril being the one motive power that is inexhaustible, something we could use today. It would carry anything, transport anything, activate anything that the human being could conceive. And so in their pride, these princes decided near the end of their time to invade what is now Europe. They decided to invade in the areas of the Mediterranean, North Africa, and the Near East. So they sent great fleets to conquer these countries. In the meantime, the deities, particularly Poseidon, realizing what was occurring, gave warnings and sent prophets and told these people they were destroying themselves, but they were proud and they gave no mind or no thought to consequence. And finally they rebelled against the gods, and the gods reacted accordingly. In a single night, the great center of Atlantean culture, the island of Poseidonis, the last surviving fragment of an ancient order of life, disappeared under the ocean, and according to the Maya calendar, carried with it to death 60 million human beings. This was the end of a great cycle of misuses and abuses, in which those powers, forces, and principles which had been intended to be of common good to all mankind were perverted and in one way or another turned against the will of heaven. And in
Occam's razor is a scientific and philosophical rule stating that entities should not be multiplied unnecessarily, or, in other words, a principle purporting that the simplest of competing theories is preferred to the more complex. Occam's razor suggests that explanations of unknown phenomena be sought first in terms of known quantities, without adding any extraneous postulations, assumptions, or conclusions. When applied to the current hot-button topic of the flat versus globe Earth cosmologies, Occam's razor, time and again, applies to only one side of this debate, whilst the other is constantly found multiplying entities unnecessarily in defense of their theory. In the geocentric level Earth cosmology, the horizontal horizon always rises to the eye level of the observer and remains perfectly flat 360 degrees around regardless of altitude, because the Earth itself is a flat, level, horizontal plane exactly as it appears. In the heliocentric globe Earth cosmology, however, the horizon isn't horizontal, but eventually starts to bend. Doesn't always rise to eye level, but eventually falls below it, and doesn't remain perfectly flat 360 degrees around the observer, but instead curves 360 degrees around itself into a sphere. The former is what everyone actually experiences, as all amateur high-altitude footage, filmed without a fisheye lens, shows a perfectly flat horizon rising with the camera as high as we can reach, over 120,000 feet high. The latter, however, is what is claimed by NASA and other space agencies, reinforced by their CGI artist renderings, fisheye lens photography, and a very select group of government employees known as astronauts. Occam's razor would suggest that without sufficient evidence of a curving horizon bending 360 degrees around itself into a magical floating ball, concluding such a cosmology would be found guilty of multiplying entities unnecessarily. The same applies for Earth's apparent complete lack of motion. In the geocentric level Earth cosmology, the Earth is stationary and immovable, while the sun, moon, and stars all move over and around us, exactly as it appears to everyone who has ever lived. In the heliocentric globe Earth cosmology, however, the Earth only looks and feels motionless, but is allegedly spinning around its own axis at 1,039 miles per hour, while simultaneously orbiting around the Sun at 66,600 miles per hour, while the entire solar system spirals 500,000 miles per hour around the Milky Way galaxy, which itself is supposedly shooting millions of miles per hour more away from an inexplicable creationary explosion at the beginning of all space and time. None of these alleged motions have ever been proven, and instead have been repeatedly falsified with experiments such as the Michelson-Morley, Michelson-Gale, Sagnac, and Aries failure. Occam's razor would suggest that without sufficient evidence that Earth is undergoing these four extremely fast, contradictory, and nowhere apparent motions, that concluding such a cosmology would again be favoring unfounded complexity and multiplying entities unnecessarily. Another example is the practical and demonstrable use of spirit levels to measure and build perfectly flat, horizontal structures over great distances. In the geocentric level Earth cosmology, the Earth, the horizon, the oceans, and the liquids in a spirit level all lay horizontal and flat exactly as they appear. In the heliocentric globe Earth cosmology, however, the very definition of level is redefined from being points of equal heights across a given expanse to being points of equal distance away from a given global center point. The former definition is what all engineers, surveyors, and builders accept and understand, as it is both common sense and been in common practice for millennia. The latter definition is one espoused by theoretical astronomers who simply assume a global center point, then boldly assert that level means curved. Occam's razor would again suggest that adding such unnecessary and unevidenced assumptions to the practical, demonstrable definition of level is unfounded. Similarly, everyone knows and understands innately the directions of up and down as being towards the heavens and towards the earth. In the globe cosmology, however, up and down are redefined as being relative concepts, with up being away from the global center point and down being towards the global center point. In such a fantastical model, a man at the North Pole can dig a hole downwards into the earth only to eventually, mysteriously find himself digging upwards and then popping out at the South Pole. In such an unintuitive model, which way would this man be facing when he popped out of his hole? Would his legs come out first, or his head? If you say his legs, how could he possibly be digging upwards while upside down standing on his head? And if you say his head would come out first, then when and how did he manage to flip 180 degrees in his hole? Occam's razor would suggest that until such a man has done such a thing, it is unwise to make such assumptions. Yet another example is the alleged size of the sun, moon, and stars. In the geocentric level Earth cosmology, the sun and moon are equal-sized, equidistant luminaries, just as they appear. In the heliocentric globe Earth cosmology, however, the sun is allegedly 400 times larger than the moon, but also 400 times farther away, which makes them only seem the same size. In reality, nobody has ever traveled to the sun to prove such a claim, and until they do, Occam's
Right.
razor would suggest not assuming such a thing. It is the same with the stars. Everyone can see clearly with their own eyes that the sun is bigger than all the stars. But yet, theoretical astronomers say the exact opposite, that the stars are all bigger
Inversion.
than the sun. Again, in reality, nobody has ever traveled to a single one of these stars, but we are still taught in school and told by astronomical authorities that they are all much larger and much farther away than the sun. Occam's razor would suggest, at the very least, we need to travel to one of these stars before making such extraneous assumptions.
Makes sense.
Two more examples are the heliocentric theories of gravity and relativity.
Big G.
In the geocentric level Earth cosmology, the force of buoyancy causes objects to rise or fall based on their relative density to the medium surrounding. Helium balloons rise up because they are lighter than the oxygen, nitrogen, and other elements in the atmosphere around them, while most other things fall down because they are denser. In the heliocentric globe cosmology, however, an alleged force existing in all things causes smaller masses to be attracted to larger ones, and so, rather than falling down because they're heavier than air, things are being attracted to the densest nearby object, i.e. the Earth. And helium balloons are mysterious, inexplicable, heathen anti-gravity devices. Globe apologists will often
Heathen.
claim buoyant force is somehow dependent on their theory of gravity for its operation, but Occam's razor would disagree. Objects rising or falling until reaching density equilibrium with the medium surrounding cannot be shown to be dependent on Isaac Newton's post hoc theory of mass attraction, and attempting to do so is just adding unevidenced complexity and multiplying entities unnecessarily. Finally, one of the most egregious examples is Einstein's theory of relativity. In the geocentric level Earth cosmology, the Earth is motionless just as it appears, while the sun, moon, and stars all revolve over and around us just as they appear. In the heliocentric globe cosmology, everything in the cosmos, including the Earth itself, is constantly moving, and so without any stationary object in existence acting as a control, all motion is claimed relative and not absolute. Einstein gives the example of two trains moving in opposing directions. It is often difficult to tell if one train is at rest while the other moves, or vice versa. This thought experiment, known as special relativity, single-handedly
Special
and without any evidence or experimentation, caused the masses to accept the unsatisfying premise that humanity is impotent to discern whether or not we are moving. In reality, however, after a few moments, it is easy to discern whether our train is moving or another train is moving. There are slight bumps in the ride and parallax in distant observations. On Earth, we never experience any bumps, and the sun, moon, and stars have all remained in their exact same patterns and constellations throughout the
Forever.
entirety of recorded history. Occam's razor would suggest that until there's any real evidence to the contrary, our common sense and lived experience of an absolutely motionless Earth is not just some relative phenomenon. William of Occam would probably roll in his grave if he knew about the spurious theories of Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, or the misguided assumptions and conclusions the masses have accepted in their wake. Thankfully, his solid philosophical principle, known as Occam's razor, has stood the test of time, pointing towards truth, even when stubborn servants of scientism refuse to renege.
Scientism, renege, dropping all the
In consequence, they were destroyed. Now, this also causes us to have another little interlude here, which I think we should give a thought to. We are told by Plato and several other historians of the time that various agencies, various merchants, travelers, explorers from Atlantis visited other lands. And among those who visited other lands were the priests of the Atlanteans, those who worshiped the great golden serpent. Serpent worship was one of the oldest religions of the world. Now these various missionaries, shall we say, went to primitive people, as we send missionaries today to underprivileged or gradually evolving groups. And these missionaries set up various institutions in the distant parts of the empire, the parts that were not actually destroyed by the destruction of the Atlantean centerland. Now, it seems to me, and I realize that this is hypothetical, but it seems to me that this explains a series of legends and myths which are of interest. We are told, for example, that the people of Chaldea and Babylonia were very primitive, that they had not yet discovered the use of fire, that they did not know how to cook food, they did not know how to keep records, they had no medical knowledge, they had no laws to live by and no governments except tribal communes. And in the midst of all this time, while they were living along the shores of the sea, one day something strange happened. A being came out of the sea. This being, whom they called Oannes, had the body of a fish and the head of a human being, and wore on his head the head of a fish on end. If you see the old pictures, you realize that his hat was what we call today a mitre, which is practically exactly the shape of a fish's head. And this man who came out of the sea had scales. Now, scales could very well represent armor. He carried symbols with him, and he was a good man. And he came to these people, and he taught them. He gave them a written language. He gave them the knowledge of agriculture. He taught them astronomy and the mystery of the stars. He helped them to build a permanent government, introduced them into the mysteries of architecture and the building of cities. And he also taught them the mysteries of heaven and the ways of the gods, and taught them to live in obedience. And he told them that in due time he would return. And then he went back to the sea, promising to come back one of these days, sometime in the future. And he walked out into the sea and disappeared. Now this seems to me to be a veiled story, could be a veiled story, of an Atlantean traveler, a missionary perhaps, who came to these people very much as the Chaldeans coming along the coast of Brittany and France gave them the beginnings of the culture of the Druids. This one who came out of the sea, he dressed in armor, probably came on a ship, which came over the horizon and was regarded as evidence that he came out of the sea. The most important thing, I think, in this legend is that he promised to return. So they waited. And they kept his laws and they kept his rules for years, but he never came back.
Damn. Never
now,
came
on
back.
the opposite side of the world, something else was happening. The people of Central America were living in a very primitive state. Some of them were cannibals. They had no homes except rude huts. They had no instruments except cuts from stone. They did not know how to cook their food. They had no written language and no way of recording their history, no knowledge of any of these things. And while they lived in this primitive condition, a strange thing happened. An old man came to them, riding on the back of serpents. And he came to the shore, and he was welcomed by them, these peoples. And his name is preserved in the three great languages of the central culture of the period and time and place. To the Aztecs, he was Kukulkan. To the ones who lived around Palenque, he was Wotan. And to the Mayas, he was Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. And this man came from the sea with a bonnet of wonderful plumes, almost like wings. And on his breast he carried a cross. He came to them, and they received him with regard and esteem. and he taught them all the things that Oannes had taught the Chaldeans. He helped them to establish a permanent way of life. He gave them the beginnings of a written language, the only written language in the Western Hemisphere. He gave them good government. And then he said, now I go away.
Now go
But
away.
keep the rules that I've given you. And in due time, I will return and claim the empire. But in the
Jesus
meantime,
Christ.
obey the principles I have taught. And these principles were of very high quality morally and ethically. Then this being went to the shores of the sea. And as he stood there, he said to the people that had assembled that a very bad power was coming to them. Tezcatlipoca, the god of war, was going to come from the south to destroy their empire. They should be true, however. They should keep the rules, and then he would return. Then there are two accounts of what happened to him. One that he called to the sea, and the raft of serpents returned. The raft of serpents could well have been a ship, with the very animal heads and so forth that were engraved and written or painted or carved on the heads of ships.
Right.
The other explanation
Decoration.
is that he was transfigured and rose to become immortalized and deified in the planet Venus. He said, I will come back. But he never came. And when the Spaniards arrived, many centuries later, and their ships were anchored, the Aztec Emperor Montezuma took the plumes on the crowns, took all the symbols of regality, and sent them by ambassador to Cortes, saying that he was Quetzalcoatl returned, and that therefore he was returning the kingdom which his people had kept trustworthy for ages. These stories are interesting. There's nothing you can do but remember these strange stories. The same story exists in China. In China, the world's reformation, the restoration of humanity, was the result of a mysterious being who came out of a fish's mouth and rising out of the sea taught them the secrets of life. In India, Vishnu, in his first incarnation, is born from the fish's mouth. Everywhere the sea was the source of instruction. Something came from the sea. We can't dogmatize what it is, but it is interesting that at a remote period, certainly 8,000 or 10,000 years ago, if not more, doctrines and concepts and beliefs reached all parts of the world and are still reserved and preserved in all the mythologies, legends, and allegories of ancient peoples, and were recognized as the ultimate source of civilization. Now, if these were missionaries, travelers, philanthropists from the Atlantean Empire, they might have wished to come back. They might have said that they would, or that others would follow. And then came the deluge. The center of the great wheel was destroyed. No one could come back. Little by little, these peoples in different areas modified their beliefs. Interracial minglings brought about complications of stories concerning the descent of knowledge. Here in the southwest of the United States, they have the legend that originally humanity lived under the earth. And a deluge came under the earth. And this deluge threatened the life of everything that lived. So humanity crawled up or climbed up to this upper world upon cornstalks and began to populate the earth. And the point where they came out of the earth is still sacred to the Navajo and the Hopi. Years ago, I had the privilege of bringing to California temporarily as my guest one of the last of the great sand painters of the Navajo, Faustin Clark. A few weeks ago when I was in Sedona, in Arizona, I mentioned Clark and everyone knew who he was. One of the greatest men of his time, an Indian, and a remarkable person. At that time, when he was up there, we had just published our large book, and I wanted him to see it. He spoke no English. He had no idea of what the book was about. So I turned to the plate of the Table of Hermes, just in passing along through the book. You'll find it if you have it. And the old Indian stopped right there. It was Chaldean. He didn't know what Chaldean was, never heard of it. But he told me through Huskanaswood, his interpreter, long, long ago, my
He said
people
my
could read this.
ancestors, yeah, I could read that. Yeah, I remember hearing that one. Dang.
In the 5th century of the Christian era, a philosopher arose who has been remembered as the last one whom Plato might have welcomed into his school. Boëtius, a magnificent person, came in a time when the history of Europe in the Dark Ages was a tragic ground for thinkers, and most of those who had really important things to say perished. Boëtius was one of them. He was sentenced to death, remained for years in a lonely prison, and was finally executed. Before his death, he prepared a little work called The Consolation of Philosophy, and this has become one of the great classics of the world, for it reveals things about philosophy and wisdom that I find in no other writing, either contemporary or later. Actually, we must therefore bear in mind that Boëthius was a very devout scholar, a person of great personal integrity, who devoted most of his life to the search for truth. And every little fragment of truth he found, he served, and tried to bring it to the attention of other people. Therefore, we may say definitely that he lived in love of truth, and he died in the consummation that his love had not been in vain. So we start with this problem by introducing a little part of the story of Boëthius. It seems that in this lonely stone prison, where he remained for some time before his execution, he was alone with his thoughts. He had nothing to help him or to guide him but his own inner life. He knew perfectly well that he would never be released. It was not day to day, just when, but he knew that his death was inevitable. So with these considerations, he had nothing to fall back on but his own inner life. And realizing this, and determined to live according to it, he settled down quietly to the contemplation of truth. And one night, while he was contemplating as best he could in that stone cell the wonders of life and the wonders of the universe, a great light came into his prison. And in that light appeared a magnificent figure of a woman, robed like Hypatia of Alexandria, radiant, hallowed, everything stupendous. And she came up to him and she said, "I am the one you have served. Now you're in need. I will serve you." And she explained to him very definitely that all he had learned to help other people had created for himself a debt which truth owed him, and that as long as he remained in the material world, truth would lead him, guide him, and give him the intelligence and the wisdom and the love to face the things he had dreamed of and believed. As a result of that, his essay on the consolations of philosophy has become a classic. It was in this realization of the return of the good deed to the one who does it that Boethius became aware of something, namely that truth is not a word. Truth is not a doctrine. Truth is not essentially a system or a school. But as all the ancients realized, truth is a living thing. It is a creature itself. It is something that has its own being. It has its own life and its own death, its own beginnings and its own ends, in infinitude beyond our comprehension. But truth is a conscious being, and this being appeared to Boethius in the prison. And from this truth he learned to live from day to day. He gained then the answers to all the questions he had asked. He gained knowledge of the distant places and the high places and the low places. He learned all the mysteries of space and time. He suddenly realized that truth was a great teacher, the one thing in life that knew that truth alone could lead man to perfection. And this perfection he had to earn by giving his own life to truth. Therefore, we are able to follow some of the thinking of the ancients concerning the mysteries of life. We think of things today merely as objects. We think of hope as some kind of a word representing an emotion. We think of wisdom merely as mental penetration. We think of love as merely a personal emotion of our own, shared by others, but still merely an emotion. But to the ancients and to the wise, these so-called things were actually beings. Love, it was a reality, it was a creature, it was not merely a relationship. And from all the ancient and classical writings we find that the Greeks, the Egyptians, and Persians, and nearly all foreign peoples have personified their virtues. When they think of strength, they think of a certain power. When they think of wisdom, they think of a person who is wise.
Right.
And so the ancients created gods for every emotion, every thought, every attitude of the human mind. Therefore we have Jupiter ruling over one thing, we have Saturn ruling over something else. To us these things are meaningless. We have a very different code. But to the ancient people, with their mystical opportunities, these different things were realities. Hope was a being, not a thing. Hope was something that grew, like a child in its mother's womb. Hope was a great moment of veneration, like the individual taking holy orders. All these things were part of a being, and all great good things are beings. They are personifications or embodiments of principles, and they appear to us as a kind of language of symbolism, a language which enables us to share in the wisdom which they impart. So Boethius in his cell saw in the vision of the power of enlightened love the fulfillment of a dream, the dream of the ages. He was told by this radiant vision that she had been with him from the beginning. The moment he dedicated his life to truth, she was with him. She would be with him to the end of his days, and at the same time she would be with all others under the same conditions, because no one walks through life entirely alone, and those who have given themselves to unselfish service to others walk constantly with a radiant presence beside them, something that is going to guard them and protect them, because they have deserved it, because they have earned the peace of inner life. They will have it regardless of what happens in the outer world. This was a great consolation to Boethius. It gave him the courage and strength to know that once one dedicates themselves to the service of truth, they will never again be alone. They will be with something, someone, somewhere, who is ever and always waiting to help, waiting to use this truth that they have discovered in order to save them further punishment, further suffering, or further pain. So the wisdom that Boethius had assembled to teach others was now taught to him. It was shown to him conclusively that his dreams had not been fables, that his ideals had not been vacuums created by optimism or pessimism, that in reality, truth is alive and walks with those who serve it. Regardless of how we view the matter, it is a beautiful thought, a very kindly thought, and a thought that gave consolation to this lonely prisoner, doomed to die because he had tried to help. Actually, therefore, before his death, truth took Boethius through all the worlds of space, through the great realms beyond where he could not go himself. Truth showed him how right he had been in certain guesses and certain suggestions. Truth also told him that she had helped him to form these ideas within his own consciousness, that as long as he served her, she would stay with him, and he would never be alone again. So Boethius, when the time came, passed on without fear or doubt, and his little book has brought comfort and insight to millions of people in a world that he never lived to know about or understand. This brings us very definitely to the concept that we had for the discussion of the morning, namely, truth as love. That truth is a being, a power, a quality. Truth is the most dramatic, dynamic way that leads to reality. But what is truth to us? How do we understand truth? Well, probably we understand it very much as Boethius understood it. We understand it by a little effort to grow. We try to be a little better today than we were yesterday, and we continue to grow a little every day. But the first step that we take toward reality brings us this contact, this something that walks with us the rest of the way. The first sincere, dedicated effort to live the life of truth brings truth to you, and truth walks with you to the end of your days. This was the idea of the Pythagoreans and the Platonists. It was the result of the individual earning dedication by his own dedication. When we do a definite good thing, when we serve those in need, when we improve the nature of our own contemplations, we have made an important connection in life. And once this connection is made, it cannot die. Once we become aware, once we have given birth out of our own souls to the soul of truth, that soul will live on. It will go with us, maybe age after age. We may backslide and forget and lose and transgress, but once we have made a sincere effort to try, we have taken the first step to eternity. We have taken the first move in the direction of everlasting peace. And therefore it was quite proper for these ancients to think of love as the faithful friend, something that could carry on beyond all of the powers of the mind. The mind can be deceived, the body can be punished, but the truth in the soul goes on. Nothing can stop it once it has started. And the first good deed dedicated unselfishly is the beginning of the long road that leads to regeneration.
Hold on for a second. Let me let y'all hear this real quick. Matter of fact.
Got the serious look just like y'all got. That serious, intense look. Because he's trying to find his way. He's trying to figure it out. It's frustrating. I'm trying to listen to God. I got my own flesh and my pulling me here, my own desires. my family, my friends, all these things is distracting me from the truth, and it's difficult to give in, especially when you're young, man. But if you can go through it, you'll come out like gold. If I can go through the fire. They don't want to go through the fire. They want to hit the lotto and go to Jamaica and the Bahamas and do their own selfish thing. But he said, if you wait till I exalt you, I give you the desires of your heart. But it's difficult to wait because everybody in a hurry. Technology, it's fast, it's in a hurry. They're angry, they're frustrated, they ain't got time, they're on the cell phone, they want to text message you, y'all in the same car, you gonna text message him, he right there. You know what I'm saying? Everybody in a hurry, I don't know where they going, but when they get there, oh, they gonna be sorry. The faster you try to get there, that career, that money, and you gonna figure it out that, man, it was the journey. It was not the destination. You was in a hurry to get there, to come up, to be this, to be that. And when you get there, you gonna feel discouraged more than you did before you even started to get there. Cause it was the journey, the people that you didn't stop to talk to like me at Checkers. The people at the gas station. You was in a hurry to get there, but it was the journey. It was the gas station, it's Checkers. It's the journey, not the destination. Cause the destination is steadily evolving. We always growing in wisdom and knowledge and understanding. It's always evolving. And we can never obtain it because it's steadily, constantly evolving. The more humble you be, then the more you can be fulfilled with the truth. But when you think you got it and you on your way, then you're gonna get less of it because can't nobody talk to you. You can't stop. You're in a hurry. It's a difficult thing, but you got it. I see the intensity. Especially being with him. He ain't nothing to play with. Then he talking to me, and you seeing it, you like, wow. You already amazed at his skill and what your relationship, but he's showing you the journey. That's very important, amen. He's showing you how to relate, connect to the people. I'm gonna say this, it's a man with pushing a basket. This man right here, they brilliant now. Don't look at the outside appearance. I've seen him in action. He was pushing a basket, and I was under the bridge, and I was talking to everybody except him. He was the last person I talked to. He said, why didn't you talk to me first? He said, I should have talked. He said, don't you ever pass by a man pushing a basket and don't acknowledge him. I never do it in my life again. I talk to the person pushing that basket, how's your day? How you doing? I talk to the homeless people because they say be careful how you entertain strangers. And most people that came off the street and they got their career together, they won't even let you know that they've been through it. They try to act brand new. It's a testimony. What you go through, it's for us to inspire somebody else. It's for me to pull the weak ones up. It's for you to pull the weak ones up. We don't go through this because of our own selfish reasons. We go through this to give them a testimony of how far God has brought me. It was never about me. I thought about me. Why I'm going through this. He said, back up, man. Who you gonna inspire? Who you gonna tell somebody about the glory and the grace of God if you don't go through it? Get out of yourself. And once I step back, I been seeing the deep things of God. And so I don't play with him. I don't ask him for a lot. I just say, give me my portion for the day. I don't want a lot of things. Just give me enough that I can deal with. He said, I give you, but fulfill your bond greater than you can ever ask. I know what you desire. I know what you need. But Lord, give me my portion where I can be grateful, where I can be thankful. They unthankful. They unholy. They ungrateful. They got a job. They don't want the job. They got 40 hours. You can't work on Saturdays. You can't work on Sundays. Now you got 3 days. They always complaining and griping and murmuring. Stop it. He said, be grateful with the little things. And wait, and I put you there. But he gonna put us in a place Well, they appreciate me in the job. I don't hate going to work. I gotta watch my back. They backstabbers. You making the money, but I can't go to the job
Right.
because I gotta watch my back. They haters. Put me somewhere where I love going to work. I can get up and they appreciate my work and I blend in. God say, I'm gonna put you there, but if you wanna get it, go ahead and get it.
What do you think about haters?
That's a part of the balance in life. They hate. They don't know why they hate. Tell them why they hating sometimes. They don't know they're hating. It's just standard thing. They get angry. He taught. Every way we taught them. They hate. They don't even know why. Because they don't know how to teach them. They don't know how to take time to let them know why they're doing things they're doing. And that's the whole purpose of life. Let them know what they're doing wrong if you see it. I always knew I was doing wrong. What about when they showed me long suffering? What about when they forgave me, but I can't forgive him? He did. He made a promise. I made a promise. I didn't fulfill it. They didn't go off on me. Well, I got to go off on him because he didn't fulfill his commitment. That's wrong. You got to teach. They don't know. The only God they know is through you, through your experience. They don't know about church because you can't go to church because it's a business. And all the church people, it's a clique, it's a club. And they done forgot about God, it's a business. Look at here. It's just the world. Ain't nobody being bold and talking about God because don't pray in school, take the prayer out of school, all these things, it's the world. We're getting in a time where God is not popular no more. And if you talk about it, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in God. I believe in this. I don't care what you believe in. Let my spirit speak for me. Let my action. But it was a time when I was just a hearer and not a doer. But it gotta balance out. You gotta go through the fire in order to be a doer too. You're gonna be a hearer, then you're gonna be a doer. But don't let people throw you off your journey. You can't beat nothing. It's between your relationship with God. They can't understand you all the time because you're trying to figure out your way. I'm trying to figure out my way. I can't prove nothing to them all the time. I don't need them to figure me out. All I gotta do is just be patient and do what was in my ability, my boundaries. I don't need to outstep my boundaries. I ain't gotta prove nothing to you. You didn't feel me? No, you gonna feel me. I can't put the expectation on you. I don't always feel me, understand me. So that's wrong. Be humble. Acknowledge him in all your ways. When I do wrong, I said something wrong to offend you, forgive me. I gotta say it right away, get it over with. If I offend somebody at work, look, if they persecute me, look at God trying to strengthen me to show them who I serve. I say I believe, I'm working with it. Well, teach them. They don't know. They don't know why they're doing that to me. Let your light shine among men. They might glorify your Father in heaven. It's real, man. I experience it all the time, 24/7. But I asked for it. I wanted to be a preacher when I was 6, but I didn't know the price I had to pay.
What was that?
Much wisdom, much grief, much sorrow. Ain't no other way you gonna get it. But if you can just go through the fire, you'll be like gold.
Right?
Wow.
The Jews know how to.
The first thing they do when you go to a pawn
Refine
shop and take
gold.
what they do? How do they determine if it's gold plated or what? What they do?
They burn it.
What kind of test they take it through? When you take the jewelry to the pawn shop, how do they determine if it's real
Initiation
or
of the
fake?
flame.
They put it through the acid test. They put the fire upon it. This is how we know if we're real or fake. We're gonna go through the fire. You're gonna have disagreement with each other, but it's okay. You're gonna be friends, but if you have a disagreement, it's just a disagreement. That don't mean you ain't gotta see him no more and talk to her or talk to her or whatever. I wanna go to work. I don't wanna go to work because they stressing me out on the job. You feel me?
Me too.
They ain't receiving me with my full potential. And I don't know
You
why I
do.
don't want to go to work. I gotta understand why. Why I don't want the job? Because something ain't right. And I gotta acknowledge it. I ain't gonna sell my soul for the job. God said, I'm trying to put you over here, or I'm trying to let them know through you, let your light shine. But I'm hating on them because they ain't feeling me. They don't understand me. Hey man, you gotta teach them. You see how they flee?
Yeah.
They want $1, want a quarter. He could have got everything that he needed if he just would have been patient, but it's okay. You recording this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm telling the truth. It's all right. I thank God for you. Y'all a blessing to me. A true blessing. I ain't got nothing to hide. My burdens are heavy, but when I'm weak, he's strong through me. He speaks through me. The weaker I get, the more frustrated I get with my life, and I did this, I did that, then the more he speaks through me, the more he takes control of me. That's just where he wants you at. Get frustrated. That's when he gonna speak through you. But he gotta get you in that point where ain't nowhere else to go but to him. He said, those that I love, I correct them. I chastise them. When you go to jail, it's called the Department of Correction, Rehabilitation. But we get mad at the correction. He said, if I didn't love you, I would correct you. He could have took our life. Amen?
Man.
He could take the life. But he corrected me. I just thank God for y'all. I see it in your eyes, but this is what Solomon asked. Solomon was the wisest man that lived. He had everything that man could desire. But one thing God said, leave the foreign women alone. But he couldn't understand why he had a desire for the foreign women. But see, the Lord knew that they were going to turn his heart against him. They were going to make him idol worship and build a God. But he didn't understand it. And I'm going to say this, the preacher, he searched the world out. He said, I want to know the basis behind wisdom and knowledge and understanding and foolishness. See, you can't know wisdom and knowledge and should be a fool, but we don't want to be foolish.
A fool first.
That's the only way you're going to get it. You got to be a fool first. How you going to know a fool when you see a fool? How you going to know foolishness if you haven't been foolish? Foolishness, it comes with, it's painful. Because we think we all of that. We got a lot of abilities. We can create. We can send man to the moon. We can be inventors, but we're limited. If I understand that I'm limited, then that's when God takes control and gives me the wisdom that I desire. Humility. Be humble. If you don't understand your purpose, ask God. But ask him in sincerity. What's my purpose, God? Did you ever ask that question?
Hey.
What's my purpose? Why I'm here? What am I meant to do? But sometimes he can't tell us all at once. It might be too much. But be sincere.
Damn. That was a good video. I haven't seen that one in like a couple weeks. A week, maybe.
Buddha brings us the same point when he says that the journey to truth begins with a single step. The single step in the Greek system was the first absolutely unselfish, dedicated effort to serve. The one moment in life when we outstrip ourselves, when we are bigger than ourselves, and place a common good above our personal advantage. As long as we are selfish, truth remains alone for us and weeps. The moment we are selfish in our thinking, or in our actions, or in our codes of life, we cut ourselves off from the eternal love which is saved for us in the wonders and mysteries of the mystic life. So it's after a certain period, we do make this effort. It becomes, as Buddha pointed out, after the first step, the second step is a little easier. But of course, all through the first steps and the second and the third, there is the pressure of outside forces. We are constantly under tension and stress and temptation. But as the moment we begin the journey, there is something there standing with us. When the good deed stands alone, as far as we can tell, it is standing actually in the presence of the principle of good in space. There is only one principle of good. It's not a principle of this being right or that being wrong. It is a simple, actual adjustment within ourselves. It requires no intellectualism. It requires no vast store of knowledge or insights. These may contribute to it, but it is a step from the selfish to the unselfish, from the dark into the light. And once the individual makes this dedication, he is pressed gradually forward, one step at a time, to the fullness that he seeks to possess in the fullness of his own maturity. So in the story of now that we have today, in the story of love as truth, we have the concept of a standard of virtue, a standard of integrity that transcends anything that we know in our ordinary material relationships. I think probably the Greeks were very close to the fact when they began to personalize all of the principles and ideal forces of life. The Greeks did not see the earth as a body alone. The Greeks saw the earth as a soul, as a living thing. They did not see the sky as merely a great mass of stars. They saw it as a great mother brooding over the world. The stars in themselves were not just sparks of light or some kind of chemical explosions in space. The stars were beings looking down upon the world. Everything in the world was alive. Everything in the world was conscious. We did not know that consciousness, but by certain growth, by certain development, we gradually reduced the distance between personal understanding and this larger value of life. Now, much of this is symbolic, no question about it, but it is something that we have to give some thought to. I remember a story that Ernest Thompson Seton told me about a meeting of the Boy Scout movement in Canada.
All right, hold on for a second. Let's listen to this real quick. See how funny this is.
Who is more likely to lie about how long they've gone without sex, men or women?
I would say
Women.
men.
Men.
For sure.
Definitely.
I feel like men would pretend like it's shorter.
Okay, I feel like women would want to make it seem like they'd gone for longer without sex.
Don't men lie about getting more and women lie about getting less?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
I think slut shaming.
Why?
Because there's a stigma around women having sex.
Because women don't want to seem like whores.
Yeah, I don't want to seem like a whore. Yeah, men do lie about getting more because they want to seem like they're just cool. Like, yeah, I get bitches.
Why are women who sleep around seen as sluts while men who sleep around are seen as studs?
It's a very good question.
A very good question.
I guess it, like, going back in time, that might be how it was, but we're here for 2023 and we're here for equality, like we said.
Could it be because it's easier for a woman to be a slut?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Way easier.
I don't know what that means.
A slag.
Yeah, no, we do know what it means.
I know what that means.
What's the difference between shaming a woman for being a slut and shaming a man for being an incel? In other words, why are women shamed for having too much sex while men are shamed for not getting any sex?
Because they expect women to just be just as pristine as possible. They don't want a woman that's ran through. They don't want a woman that's had so much experience.
Because a man with not having sex means that shows he has less value. But if a woman having too much sex, that shows that she has less value.
Don't women have a choice to be a slut, but a man doesn't have a choice to be an incel?
That's true.
Right.
Well, is incel more like men who become violent when they don't have sex? And sluts generally aren't violent. So that's the big difference.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Don't women have a choice to be a slut, but a man doesn't have a choice to be an incel?
I think you can choose, if we're going down the violence route, you can definitely choose to be violent, and you should always choose not to.
Who are the bigger slut shamers, men or women?
We're just talking about being violent.
I'm gonna say women.
Men.
Yes.
Although women are guilty of it too, and we should really support each other, I feel.
It's giving in
to be violent, and you should always choose not to.
Who are the bigger slut shamers, men or women?
Damn, I'm gonna say women.
Men.
Yes.
Although women are guilty of it too, and we should really support each other, I feel.
It's giving internalized misogyny.
If a woman's body count doesn't matter, why is it typically the first thing women bring up to shame another woman they are jealous of?
Internalized misogyny.
But I also don't think that, well, personally speaking, I don't know anyone who would do that to shame another woman. I think anyone I know would be like proud of their number.
Why are there men who will shame women for having high body counts while also complaining about how hard it is to get laid?
Insecurity. They're jealous.
What are they jealous about?
Not getting enough sex.
I think that has to do with like being bitter.
What are those men bitter about?
They bitter about like.
I don't think so, bro.
They bitter how women can easily get it, but for them, it takes them more effort. Like it's effortless for women to have sex, but when a man want to have sex, he actually got to earn that.
What is the difference between the women men want to sleep with and the type men want relationships with?
One's a slut and one's like wifey, you know?
Do men want virgins or sluts?
Virgins, I feel like.
No, they want sluts.
No, but they want virgins to keep as a wife, but they want a slut
Women don't know what we want, obviously.
What's the difference between a slut and a hoe?
A slut and a hoe, man. Hey, I got two definitions for that. I'm just give you one though. You know what I'm saying? A slut. I'll say a slut is just a broad that's just fucking to be fucking. But a hoe, you know what I'm saying? She fucking for benefits.
Don't hoes get paid?
Yeah, hoes get paid.
A hoe does it for money, and a slut just goes with everyone for.
It's a free hoe.
Fun. It's a free hoe.
Why are we more concerned with women's body count than women hating men? Wouldn't having sex with men count as pro men rather than hating men?
Definitely. That'll definitely be pro men.
So shouldn't we be hoe shaming rather than slut shaming?
No.
I feel like we should be slut shaming, not hoe shaming.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because hoes,
they get to the bread.
They're basically, it's a job. That's what they do.
I respect them.
So shouldn't we be hoe shaming rather than slut shaming?
Nah, I don't think we should be doing any of those, man. They both benefit us.
Where is the line between a man feeling entitled to a woman's body versus a woman feeling obligated to put out?
There should be no line. The women should just feel able to do that at any point without any obligations.
Do women feel like they need to provide sex in order to keep a man? And if so, why?
Absolutely. Because it's a need for a lot of men, for a lot of people.
So then how can men be shaming women for having high body counts if they want sex?
They shouldn't be.
So do men want purity or do men want sex?
Damn. I feel like short term, man just wants some pussy. But like long term, yeah, he wants somebody that nobody ever touched before. Like he'll have like this female right here on the left side. That's why I think polygamy is good for men. Like, okay, this is my slut right here, but this is my good girl right here. You know, there's more women than there is men anyways.
Why does society keep trying to shame women that clearly have no shame?
Because confidence scares people.
Where is the line between a man feeling entitled to a woman's body versus a woman feeling obligated to put out?
The line for it is if a man approaches me and says, I think you should f me because I'll buy you this new Gucci purse, that's the line. If a woman walks up on you and says, oh, I'm drunk and I'm just throwing my body at you, that's the line. We should both be mutually sober and agree to having this interaction.
Do women feel like they need to provide sex in order to keep a man, and if so, why?
Some women do, and they feel that way because they've never been shown real love by a man.
Ladies, if a guy puts you in a situation where you really is like, hey, if you don't put out, it's over. Like, listen, you really need to call a hotline number. Like, don't listen to your friends, don't listen to music, don't listen to nothing. Listen to the hotline. That's it.
Why are men shamed for not being able to get sex while also shamed for trying to get sex?
That's a good question, man. That's like a real hypocrisy. I would say men are shamed for getting sex because
hypocrisy.
Women, they hate to admit when a man has finesse. When a man can finesse his way to getting some, she don't want to admit that she participated in that. And then when he doesn't get none, I don't think women really shame men for not getting none. It's really men that shame men for not getting none. Because man, we very competitive. So we trying to put another man down to make ourselves look better.
Why do guys say they want good girls but are attracted to sluts, while girls say they want good guys but are attracted to the players?
Sluts are easy, good girls are hard, players are fun, good guys are boring.
Well, how can we
She
be
laid it out there
simultaneously
pretty
coaching
simply.
men on how to seduce women while also shaming women for having high body counts?
You can't. It's like they cancel each other. Like, how you gonna try to teach men to seduce a woman, and then when she gets seduced, you shame her for it? Like, you know, it has to be a balance. I think that they kind of cancel each other out.
So do men want purity or do men want sex?
I feel like we want both, man. Like, you know.
So who's more likely to not know what they want, men or women?
Women for sure.
Honestly, men don't know what they want, because if they have a slut, they have someone more experienced, and if they have a virgin, they're going to be prideful because they're the only one a woman has slept with.
And when a man sleeps with a virgin, they believe that that woman belongs to them. No one else can touch them because they took that from them. They believe the woman is now their property and that no one else has access to them.
What is the difference between the women men want to sleep with and the type men want relationships with?
What's the difference between those
It's
women?
giving Madonna whore complex. We're dating back to Freud now, really.
Sigmund Freud.
Can you explain the Madonna whore complex?
Yeah, so it's this dichotomy between, you know, the whore and the Madonna, and it's like what you just said, women that men want to sleep with and like wife up, if you will. And
The wifey material versus
pure, but one, you know, gives them the fantasy they desire.
Exactly, the excitement.
Yeah.
Do men want virgins or sluts?
Men want a freak in the sheets and a lady on the streets.
A freak in the sheets and a lady in them streets. Fuck you talking about?
How many bodies is too many?
The limit does not exist.
The
She was all proper just a second
women that
ago.
men want to sleep with and like wife up, if you will. And
The
it's
wifey material versus
pure, but one, you know, gives them the fantasy they desire.
Exactly, the excitement.
Yeah.
Do men want virgins or sluts?
Men want a freak in the sheets and a lady on the streets.
A freak in the sheets and a lady in them streets. Fuck you talking about?
How many bodies is too many?
The limit does not exist.
Depends on the person.
Does being promiscuous affect a person's ability to have a long-term relationship?
Pair bonding. Yes.
Not promiscuous within a monogamous relationship.
Exactly. I think being
What?
promiscuous is fine, but obviously knowing the line is the most important thing.
What does
If
that
you're
even mean?
promiscuous, that means you're having sex with multiple people, and because of that, you start having expectations which are unrealistic. So that could absolutely affect your sexual
Definitely.
relationship and even just like your relationship on connecting with the opposite
Pair
sex in general.
bonding.
Being with one person is how we actually are able to really become free to explore our sexuality to the true depths that it can reach. I mean, like, you can't do that
What's she
with one
talking
night
about?
stands and random hookups from
About, like,
Tinder.
Well, a lot of
Being
women
on
assume that men
people's-
just want hookups, and if that's true, why would so many men care about a woman's body count?
I don't know if a man would care about a woman's body count for a hookup. It's this kind of question I get asked like when I'm dating or like in a relationship. But if I was hooking up with someone for like a one night stand or something
why didn't you
casual,
guard me?
I'm not so sure I'd be asked. I don't think I ever have been asked.
So do you think it depends on what stage the man's life is in?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Between 20 and 30 years old, they want just to have fun. But after it, then they just realize that probably they need to settle down and they just need to be loved.
Oh, okay.
Do you think men care more about
She
relationships or
understands.
hookups?
Relationships? I would say hookups. Just being real.
Does it depend on what stage the man's life is in?
I think in a lot of scenarios, when men are older, they tend to calm down, but it really depends on the man.
So do men want purity or do men want sex?
Both.
If men want purity, wouldn't that mean men have to wait until marriage? And haven't we established men shouldn't be getting married under the current laws?
No, I don't think marriage equals purity.
If you mean by pure, you mean straight up like nothing up until marriage, or if you mean like pure as in like a decent, good person that you love and stuff like that.
Who is more delusional? A woman seeking a 1% man that's loyal, or a man seeking a perfect 10 woman with zero body count?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with the woman, because there are some women that you can find that are bad with a zero body count. They're out there that are of legal age, that are out there that are doing great.
Why is the manosphere mainly concerned about promiscuity and masculinity rather than misandry?
I think that the manosphere is more focused on promiscuity and masculinity simply because the manosphere talks to women to tell women what men want. So we're not, when a woman hates us, we're not worried about it. You know, we're not focused on it. We're not gonna get emotional about it. That's just what it is.
Do we shame women more for being hoes or men for being simps?
I think women.
Yeah, it's women, most definitely.
We shame men for being simps much more than we shame women for being hoes, especially in this environment now. Simply because, I mean, if you're spending money, if you're spending money that you don't have, especially on a woman, it's just irresponsible. For a woman to be a hoe, even though it's irresponsible, we just try not to shame women as much as possible.
Can men be improved by shaming them?
Absolutely. Men can be improved by shaming it because we actually take shame in a different way than women do. So if you shame us, more likely we're going to respond with accepting what our problem is and building and working on that.
Can women be improved by shaming them?
Growing? No.
From my experience, women do not do well with shame. So it will probably be better to just not shame women, find an easier way to tell women where they're wrong and where they're right.
If women won't change for men, why do we keep expecting men to step up and change for women?
That's a good question, man. You need to, hey, look, you need to stop doing that shit. If you're gonna change for yourself. Don't change for her, man, because she ain't gonna change for you.
A lot of relationship issues are the man's fault mainly, but I think it's a good mentality on both sides to consider themselves more of the fault because it helps you leave the ego behind when you're trying to improve something.
I think the most important thing for men is to be malleable, to be able to work with the environment around us. So I think it's more important for us to be able to maneuver and to be able to work with what we have rather than expect women to deal with the situations that we have.
Like an adult? All right, that's funny.
One year while he was still alive, and he was there, and the young people from all over the area of the United States and Canada were gathered in a large hotel where the meetings were to be held. And a little American boy and a little American Indian boy were in the same room together, looking out of the window, and it was snowing. And the little Indian boy said, this is the great-grandfather. This is the old one who sits at the North Pole, and he smokes all winter. And every time he empties his pipe and throws out the ashes, it's a snowstorm. All these, you see, are the ashes of grandfather's pipe. The little American boy looked at him for a moment and thought he was insane or something, and said, "Oh, don't be silly. That's nothing but snow."
Nothing but
the
snow.
Little Indian boy never did get the idea that snow was anything except the ashes of grandfather's pipe. And this is the truth in almost all ancient beliefs. All Indian peoples had beings at the root of life. All Chinese people had beings. Hindus had beings. Greeks had beings. It is only in our modern scientific world that we transform these beings into scientific formulas of numbers and letters and try to bestow upon these formulas the interpretation of the mysteries of life. You cannot follow the scientific method we use today to find the secrets of anything except the most transcendent material objectives. Actually, the answers to all the riddles of knowledge, the source of energies, the source of life, of time, of light and darkness, of good and evil, are all formulas of vibratory rates, and they are all alive. Everything has some kind of life in it. It is in the stone, it is in the star. They are tied together by a tremendous unity. So Boëthius went out with the vision of the wonderful Lady of Light to gaze at and contemplate the space around him. He saw it filled with life, not with dead atmosphere, not with just earth and air, but filled with living things, beautiful things, wonderful things, that surrounding man and all of his knowledge and thoughts and his ignorance also is a world of living things that he can't even see, a world he doesn't even believe in, but a world which affects him every day, a world which moves in upon his moods, upon his attitudes, a world that punishes him when he is selfish, a world that praises him when he is right. And he will recognize that in a mysterious way, there are forces in that world which will guide him to his proper destiny if he will keep the rules. Each individual must live the life if he would know the doctrine. And when he does so, he realizes that the life that he is going to contact is not simply energy. It is not just a thought floating around. It isn't even a mentation in the mind of God. When he keeps the rules, space is with him. Time is with him. Eternity is with him. Little by little, the purpose for himself is fulfilled, and the time will come when he likewise will be a unit of conscious energy in the great fields of universal life.
Alright, here we go. We're gonna play this shit real quick. See what this do. See what that shit look like. Probably finna get off in a minute though. Just wanna play a couple games of 2K. But yeah. Listen to some philosophy. Kick it, you know what I'm saying? Chill a little bit. Relax. Play this shit.
I know. Life can feel very heavy, but nature is one of the best teachers if we pay close enough attention. And fortunately, many intelligent people have figured out deep truths about existence far before we were even born. So, as we stand on the shoulders of these giants, we can learn from our own realities and from the resources and insights they left us. As we learn and implement, we can take our lives in a direction most can't even dream of. And guess what? One of the best philosophies that will add tremendous value to your life is Stoicism. It especially did for me, like seriously. Let's go beyond just the philosophy and also look at the psychological and spiritual breakthroughs Stoicism brings to your life. Stoicism is usually seen as a philosophy, but to me it's truly a powerful branch of spirituality. It came during the Hellenistic era of Greece after Alexander the Great's death, and it was founded by a guy named Zeno of Citium. Now, it's not just him that came up with the philosophy, a lot of people contributed to it, but he was the founding person. Later in this video, I'm gonna go through amazing quotes from other Stoic philosophers, and they're just gonna ring so true when you hear them, and they're just gonna be like, wow, this is deep stuff. Also later in this video, I'm gonna cover how to practically apply Stoicism in your life, because it's one thing to know this from a theoretical standpoint, but applying it is a whole different story. So you're gonna wanna listen very closely throughout this entire video, because the amount of knowledge bombs and insights you're gonna pick up just from this video, it's gonna be next level. Zeno's idea was that a smooth flow of life came from living in accordance with nature. And you may be saying, what does that even mean to live in accordance with nature? Well, he saw it as the fact that the universe or nature had its binding principles and rules. And from a human standpoint, there's human nature, which has its own rules and boundaries. When we accept these boundaries, we understand what is and what isn't in our control. You can't control human nature, but you can think, behave in certain ways that lead to better outcomes for you and other people. Those who live by keeping the individual and universal natures in harmony are happy, and those who don't are not. Here's a quote that I like around Stoicism. Stoic philosophy is perspective. Perspective is either healthy or unhealthy. A healthy perspective does not mean the situation is good necessarily. If you are in a bad situation, the healthy perspective is to act upon the probability that if you let yourself disintegrate, you will entropy into chaos. Good perspective carries you even in bad times. And bad times can be very relative to the person, and it depends. But whatever you perceive as bad times, if you aren't able to regulate yourself, regulate your emotions, reframe, reflect, and do a...
Yeah, just relax, apparently, is what he's trying to say. Fucking Stoicism. Pretty simple to do. I mean, not relax, but it's more to it. But, you know, don't get too high, don't get too low.
The words we speak are not mere utterances. They carry a lasting frequency within the ether. Often, we are negligent in our speech, not realizing its profound impact. However, our consistent spoken words play a vital role in shaping our state of being, serving as a mirror to our inner world. Unfortunately, many people are unaware of the power their words hold, casually saying things without considering their consequences. If one continuously speaks of poverty and helplessness, those very words permeate the ether, influencing the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind remains impartial to what we perceive as good or bad for ourselves, and it faithfully brings forth all that we express and believe to be true. Consequently, our spoken words hold immense power as they shape our reality. Neville Goddard's concept of the law of assumption forms the foundation of this principle. Unbeknownst to us, our spoken words unveil our unconscious assumptions, and these very assumptions materialize in our daily experiences. If we observe our words closely, we will witness how accurately they manifest into the world around us. Joseph Murphy once said, "As you sow in your subconscious mind, so shall you reap in your body and environment." Therefore, if one continuously speaks of weakness throughout the day, that very weakness will become prominent. Similarly, dwelling on lovelessness will attract more of it into one's life. Our subconscious mind operates without judgment. That role belongs to our conscious mind. Hence, when you express your desire not to be unhappy any longer, your subconscious attentively heeds your words and emotions. Now you might wonder, I desire happiness, yet why does my subconscious seem to bring forth more unhappiness? According to Neville Goddard, we manifest not what we want, but what we are. Instead of expressing, I don't want to be unhappy anymore, shift your words to affirmations like, I am blessed and happy, feeling wonderful. By doing so, you declare your current state of happiness, creating a distinct emotional foundation. Ultimately, your state of being plays a significant role in what manifests in your life. Speaking words of wealth and riches throughout the day alone won't suffice. Genuine feelings of abundance are essential. When you cultivate gratitude for what you have and embrace a mindset of abundance, a noticeable shift occurs in your speech. Complaints diminish, and a desire to express even more gratefulness arises. Therefore, it's prudent to observe your words and emotional connections throughout the day. This practice allows you to recognize your unconscious assumptions, which inevitably influence your life. Joking about negative aspects can have unintended effects on the subconscious mind. Self-deprecating humor, though seemingly amusing, can be unfavorable when considering its metaphysical implications. Every word that resonates within you holds significance and finds expression in some form, sooner or later. In light of this metaphysical truth, complaining proves to be a detrimental activity. By complaining, you inadvertently give energy to the very things you're unhappy about, further solidifying them into your reality. This tendency becomes evident in unhappy couples who focus on complaints rather than understanding and love, leading them to a cycle of increased unhappiness. To improve this aspect, choose your words wisely and opt for powerful and uplifting language in your interactions with others and yourself. For instance, shift from "I hope I can win" to "I trust that I will win," recognizing the subtle yet significant difference between hope and deep trust. Similarly, replace phrases like "I will try my best" with "I trust that I will do amazingly." By altering your words,
I trust that
you
I will do
infuse life
amazingly.
and positivity into your being, fostering joy and vitality. Such is the undeniable power of your spoken word. A person's words alone can reveal much about them, serving as a physical reflection of their inner state and an announcement to both the world and their subconscious mind, providing insight into their true self. Therefore, exercising caution in your speech becomes crucial. It's essential to align your inner conversation with the frequency of love, for it gradually shapes your outer communication. When you adopt a loving approach towards yourself and your desires during your inner dialogue, fostering compassion and self-love, you pave the way for your words to manifest into the ideal you envision. Over time, this alignment with love consistently yields positive and delightful outcomes. Your words hold significance and do not go unnoticed. Should you doubt their power, observe the conversations of various individuals in your life. You will witness a clear reflection of their words manifesting in their experiences. It's worth noting that conversations of those facing financial challenges often revolve around poverty and limitations, while those enjoying prosperity often focus on money and expansion. In acknowledging this, it's essential to avoid judgment towards any state of being. Whether in poverty or abundance, both individuals are equally significant as expressions of the essence of God. Their apparent differences stem from their respective states of mind, creating distinct worlds in their perception. To bring about positive change in their lives, individuals need to refine their inner conversation. By adopting a different way of speaking and living within their inner world, transformations can occur swiftly, resulting in observable changes in their external reality. As Hermes Trismegistus said, man is given the gift of speech and mind that makes him equal to the immortals. This profound truth suggests that our words possess an eternal nature. They linger in the ether indefinitely. Over time, the energy generated by our words accumulates within the collective consciousness, ultimately influencing the manifestation of events in the world around us. This extends to our personal lives as well, as the words we express actively shape our individual experiences. In this context, it is essential to recognize that you, as an individual, hold a timeless existence. Your words are akin to spells of magic, carrying immense power and influence. According to Hermes Trismegistus, understanding and mastering the correct use of speech and the mind can serve as a guiding force even beyond the physical realm into the afterlife, leading us into the realm of gods. The enduring nature of speech and mind remains unchanged, even when the physical body ceases to exist. This profound concept reminds us of the eternal impact our words can have, shaping not only our present reality, but extending far beyond into realms unknown. Exercise caution and mindfulness in your speech, as doing so will yield enduring benefits from your choice of words. Our words have a profound impact, getting imprinted into the collective consciousness, and consequently, they can bring forth either distressing experiences or blessings into this world. If you speak negatively about the world, you inadvertently contribute to its worsening state. And likewise, if you speak unfavorably about your personal circumstances, you exacerbate them. Instead, awaken the eternal essence within you and wield its powers judiciously. Embrace words of love, and you will witness love's presence abundant in every facet of existence. Conversely, speaking words of hate will attract an atmosphere of discord and negativity in your life. It's crucial to recognize that this world mirrors our inner state of being. Within you lies the potential for the kingdom of heaven, not confined to any physical location, but existing as a state of consciousness.
Damn.
As beings with immortal potential, we possess the extraordinary ability to materialize our imaginations. Empower yourself by elevating your consciousness, delving into the profound reality that lies dormant within. Awaken the immortal essence within you, and in doing so, you can contribute to transforming this world into a realm akin to heaven, not only for yourself, but also for others. Approach your words with unwavering conviction, speaking with a touch of magic that manifests heaven on earth, creating a reality that aligns with your deepest desires.
Well, there you have it. That was, Stoicism, I think? Whatever. Shit, I mean, no, that was magic. Words are magic. That's what it meant. That's what that was. All right. Fuck it. Let's play this one. Shit.
The more complicated world problems become, the more important it is for us to do everything possible to simplify our own relationships with life. A tremendous amount of energy is lost in the mere confusion of complication. Even though we may gradually solve whatever the confusion may be, we have used energy and we have used time. And life as we know it is a problem in time and energy. And to achieve the maximum of security and happiness and usefulness, we must try to conserve our resources. We have noticed for the last 25 years how the tempo of life has increased, and the individual has not really been able to adjust to this increase successfully. We realize that in the last 2.5 decades, we have become more and more dependent upon artificial means of vitality support. We have become addicted to every type of vitamin that there is known. We require continual use of stimulant or sedational material, both these indicating that we are not able to cope successfully with the pressure of conditions. The pressure of conditions must also be regarded as a compound of the prevailing confusion. The more confused we become, the more difficult our environment becomes. And the individual confusion finally summarizes itself or masses itself into vast patterns of collective confusion. While it is not possible for us to create any code that we can require others to follow, thus adding to a general simplification, we must, to the best of our ability, prevent ourselves from falling into the prevailing dilemma. Simplification must never be interpreted as compromise. We do not want to simplify things by losing values. We do not want to follow lines of least resistance at the expense of principles. But we do want to, first of all, get our principles straight. The individual who really has an internal organization, whose beliefs are well set, whose ideals are clear to himself, already has a strong defense against the uncertainties of his times. So by simplification, we mean organization of values. If the person decides in his own mind that which he shall do and what he shall not do, what he can do and what he cannot do, and having come to certain clear internal directives, he must learn to apply these directives to the circumstances which arise around him. Thus, simplification is self-leadership over circumstance. It is the individual charting a course and staying on that course. It takes much less energy to stay on a course than it does to find it again after it has been lost. So we try in every way possible to remove useless, valueless, worthless kinds of pressure. Pressures that even if we succeeded in all the things we want to do, or that these pressures invite us to attempt to do, we would probably be very little better off than we are today. So we are not looking for simplification in the giving up of value. but in the clarification of value. We are looking for a way of life in which we recognize what is good and stay with it, not allowing ourselves to be lured into some confused state which is going to require more energy than we can afford to expend. If this is true of all persons, it is especially true of those who are growing older, whose energy supplies are therefore less adequate, and whose lives have become increasingly more burdened. We find as we get older that time moves more rapidly than ever before, but we have less and less time to do the things that we really want to accomplish. Our interests have become richer and fuller. Our responsibilities have increased in number. We are surrounded with more inducements to activity. We are called upon more and more by those who may respect our wisdom or understanding or experience. Therefore, as we go along the road, simplification is the secret of preserving health and vitality for the longest possible period of time. To do all these different things that are necessary to straighten out life, we have to begin with all the minor problems, the ordinary common problems of our time and living. One thing we also learned is that we have a greater skill in handling important critical situations than we have in administering nuisance situations. If we are faced with a major decision in life, it seems as though something comes along and gives us guidance. The major decision calls for all our resources. We gather ourselves together, sit down, and use the best that we know to solve it. The result is that many times the greatest decisions, the greatest changes, the greatest integrations that we achieve take the least energy. We are more or less sure of what we are doing or what is necessary, and we proceed accordingly. The greatest of all wasting factors is that of minor problems. Problems that are not very clear in themselves, that lead to ends that are not very certain. Things which come along as endless minor irritations. Against these we must be ever watchful, because this endless wasting away of small amounts of energy will in the end deplete our major resources. If we study the allotments of body energy as we find these in the human personality, we become aware of nature's intention. And it is, of course, the wisdom of nature that we should use our energy as wisely as possible, conserve it as much as we can, and never assume for a moment that the resources that we have are unlimited. They are all limited by many problems and many circumstances. The energy allotments of different persons differ. Some individuals seemingly can stand far more burden and responsibility and irritation than others. We have undoubtedly learned from experience something of our own allotment. We find how quickly things tire us, and we gradually learn what kind of things tire us most. And if we make such discoveries, we should put this information away and keep it where we can get at it, because it is the secret of our ability to conserve energy. Ordinarily speaking, we do have, however, enough energy for the things that most need doing. But very often, our energy follows our inclinations rather than our needs. Thus, we do have energy often for projects that are not actually very important. And at the same time, we get a strange sense of fatigue when we are confronted with problems or responsibilities that may be necessary but which we do not particularly want to assume. Energy follows desire very closely. That is one of the reasons we must guard our energy. because the fulfillment of our desires can often be a very exhausting thing, often impossible in substance, even though we have struggled desperately to achieve it. To begin with, then, energy is most wasted perhaps in conflict. Wherever it is possible to remove conflict, either internal or environmental, we are making a major gain. Conflict may arise from situations outside of ourselves, but it may also, and frequently does arise, from within us or from our own reaction to conditions around us. I know more persons who have exhausted a complete life of vitality simply trying or laboring with situations that they have created for themselves, creations of their own mental and emotional pressures, which should never have existed at all. One of the common experiences we have in this field, and of course at this season of the year, it is particularly obvious, and that is the amount of energy we can waste over religious criticism. The amount of energy that we can deplete ourselves of in our worries and anxieties about people whose religious beliefs are different from ours. In families, this can be a very trying and exhausting thing, and a profitless waste of resources. If we could simplify our thinking to this very basic philosophical principle, that a religion is finally a way of life, that an individual is religious who keeps principles, and that above all sectarian considerations must be elevated the fact of conduct. If the individual is keeping the rules of life as wisely, as lovingly, and as skillfully as he knows, we do not need to worry very much about the church he goes to. If he is not keeping these rules, it makes very little difference which church he goes to. He is still in trouble. So we can get out of our minds worries, fears, and anxieties about these abstract things that we cannot do anything about, even at best. And yet many persons have ruined their lives worrying about abstract values which they cannot control and about which they have no clear insight even themselves. Another very desperate way of wasting energy is to try to control, dominate other people. The desperate determination to rule the life or activity of others. The resolution to take leadership where this leadership is not required, requested, or desired can also lead to a very serious depletion of resources. Not only do we have the actual energy loss as such, but we have the continual unhappiness, and all forms of unhappiness are debilitating. The individual becomes weakened through the use of energy in the simple process of being miserable. So whatever in life we are doing, if we are miserable about it, it is shortening our lives and injuring our health. We must gradually recognize what nature wants and what nature is trying to tell us from the cradle to the grave. That is, that nature wants us to live at peace with ourselves and others. If we do not achieve this peace, we must pay for it in devitalization in some way. For the absence of peace is discord, and discord uses up energy. All forms of discord deplete and destroy life resources. Nature has never rewarded confusion, except with more confusion. Nature has never allowed the individual to be a dictator or a tyrant without ultimately impoverishing him. And after all, we must recognize that above all codes that we are capable of formulating ourselves is the inevitable code of cause and effect. We see around us the inevitable consequences of action. Therefore, we must keep this basic code. For some reason, man from the beginning has rebelled against this. He has almost always determined in some way to impose his own will upon the face of nature. He wants to do things his way. He assumes that nature does not know what it needs, what it wants, or what it must have. It is up to man to decide these things.
It definitely is. And on that note, I'm gonna holler at y'all later. Man has made a decision. I'm out. I'll holler. Peace.